Hey, so I just recently finished reading this book on making Elvis Presley, Careless Love. This is the sequel or the second part of the series. This was the first book, Train to Memphis. This one kind of covers the rise of Elvis Presley, the first from like up to by pretty much 1958, and this is kind of covers the rest from like 1960 to 1977. You can find both these books. You can find them on Amazon. Every time I go to Barnes and Noble, they seem to have both books, and then you kind of put them together, and they kind of form the spines over there. So anyway, if you're interested in Elvis Presley, if maybe you watched the movie and you want to learn more about his life, and try not to believe on the movies that have come out about him, you want to really know the truth or somewhat of the truth. I highly recommend this book or these books. So this one again covers from out of the army from like 1960 to 1977. This is almost like kind of like a textbook of his career. Really enjoyed it. It's really long, very very detailed. As you can see, this is like 600 pages, over 600 pages. Very detailed. They go into a lot about his career. Very detailed, and so it really talks. I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed the author. Like I said before when I did the review of the previous book, I like how the author doesn't try to sway the reader into their own agenda. Sometimes when an author will write a book, they'll have their own views and stuff and try to like convey that. He's just straightforward. He takes the research that he's done and just presents it to you, that way. Things I like about the book. I'm always curious. The reason why I wanted to read these books was really to learn more about Elvis Presley and just learn how this guy that was like a nobody, a shy kid, grew up to become such a mega superstar, like a mega entertainer, and the changes that he would go through, like becoming this big star. And the character, of him, and that's why I wanted to learn, the rise of him and also the downfall. And this book definitely covers it, which is the period of the career that I'm most interested in. Through the movies and through the concert years, and then the end. So what I get out of the book, so basically, they talk about the coming out of the army, and it talks about like how I think Elvis really kind of resented his father from getting remarried in 1960 to the D. Stanley, and that's how he got with the Stanley brothers. He kind of like hints at that, Elvis kind of, and that might have been something that stayed with him his entire life. He kind of resented his father for that, because everybody knows that Elvis was really close to his mother, so they talked a little bit about that. And then they go into like the movies career, and I just like in the beginning when he started doing the movies and stuff, that he was so excited and he was so happy. He was thinking, like this is going to start his movie career, and he thought it was going to be really successful. And and it was. You look at some of the early ones in the early '60s, like Blue Hawaii, Viva Las Vegas. They were pretty good movies, but as the years went by, I felt like the movie industry in the '60s was kind of changing with and they weren't going with the times, and they were still making these childless movies and musicals where they should have maybe went into more of serious dramatic films, which Elvis would have preferred. They really talked about Colonel Parker's philosophy or kind of his way of promoting Elvis. We're pretty much taking Elvis kind of away from the public. And what I mean by that was not having him appear on TV, so people can't go down, on the Tonight Show or something like that anymore, which he did earlier in his career in the '50s, but in the '60s, kind of taking him away from the public eye, meaning that you would have to go to the movies in order to, you had to pay a ticket to go see him, Elvis in the movies, or of course buy the soundtrack. So what kind of that was a pretty good, marketing. Elvis would get paid for doing the movie, plus get paid to do the soundtrack. So I mean, that was the way. And also, they mentioned how towards and as they started doing the more movies, they started to cut the budget and trying to get these movies done in a quicker pace. And that's just a nightmare when it comes to filmmaking. You cut the money and you rush in production. it's, things are gonna suffer, and production's gonna suffer, and the movies just went down. And they talk about, a lot about Colonel Parker in the book, like I mentioned. I think a lot of times Colonel Parker gets a bad rap, especially with the Elvis movie that came out. He was portrayed as the villain. I'm not saying I'm not like a big supporter of Colonel Parker, but I don't think should be blamed for like everything that's gone wrong, and stuff like that. A lot of people they really talk about the international tours. Elvis wanted to tour in England, and Colonel Parker prevented him from doing that, and I understand that, but like I was like, because he didn't have a visa, he was illegal, he couldn't go travel overseas. I mean, I say like if Elvis really wanted to do that, he would have done it. They mentioned even when he wanted to have a meeting with President Nixon. He was determined to do it, and he got it. So I'm sure if Elvis really wanted to tour England, he would have found a way to do it. I don't know why Colonel Parker wouldn't want. Colonel Parker seemed like a guy that just wanted money. So if they were going to pay them, millions of dollars to go to England, I'm pretty sure he would have been okay with that. I could have been wrong. I don't know, but that's my opinion. So they talk about that, and then they talk about going back to what part I really enjoyed was when they talk about the '68 comeback special and doing that. But what I enjoyed the most was when they started to do the tour, where it started playing in front of a live audience again, and them talking about playing at the Hilton or an International at the time when you started playing in Vegas, and the whole setup how that show was going to start, and them getting the musicians for the show and all that, and what kind of songs they were going to play and all that. And they talk about, they give a good description of the show and how it changed as he got more comfortable doing the live shows, going back and doing live shows in front of, an audience. So I really enjoyed that part. And the book kind of like, of course, we got, Priscilla. What I find more interesting was some of the other girlfriends he had that were not well known. I think we all know about, of course, Priscilla, Linda Thompson, and Ginger Alden. But there's other girlfriends in between and stuff that they mentioned too. That I didn't know. If you watch the movie, you would think that Priscilla was the only one, but there was definitely more. He had more relationships, especially Linda Thompson. They talk about, their relationship. Elvis, lived a great life after Priscilla. He had 4.5 year relationship with Linda Thompson, and then, and Ginger Alden too afterwards. So that was, talking about the different relationships. They talk about like kind of like behind the scenes of setting up, the shows. Again, Priscilla, how they met, and all that, and you could tell that Priscilla, really wanted to marry him, and really kind of like the downfall of that relationship. He was just pretty much on the road performing, and I think it was, and that, and what else in this book? This is a really good book. And like I said, it's very, very detailed. Not many pictures in here, so if you're looking for like pictures, they're kind of might lack pictures. I think I made this video really long, but I highly recommend it. And it really goes into details, towards the end, the final, couple hours of, of August 16th, 1977. My only disappointment in the book, and it probably like it kind of ends, and they bring up all these characters, well, not characters, but all these people in the book, and I'm kind of like wishing that they would have had like maybe like an extra chapter of like where are they now, kind of like what happened to all these people, what happened to Linda Thompson, or what happened to some of the people in the Memphis Mafia, what happened to them afterwards. That would have been kind of cool to find out. But it's definitely worth checking out. Anything else I want to say about this book? I talked about, all the, pretty much goes through the years, what was going on with Elvis's life, they talk about, like towards the end of his life, they talked about like how he might have been like kind of like depressed with his career, and getting healthy. I think it was more a lot to do with maybe, a lot of the medication that he was on, he was in like a lot of times in the hospital and stuff, and they weren't too kind with Ginger Alden in this book. I read her book, and she has a kind of a totally different interpretation of what happened in their relationship. It's kind of hard to believe, like, who's. I don't think she would be lying, and I really enjoyed her book. That's probably one of my favorites about Elvis, but weren't really too kind to her, like saying that they would always be arguing, and like she didn't want to go on tour with him, and he like mentioned that it was like he would tell people that that he loved her, but she didn't love him back, and she was too like she wanted to be more with her family than him and all that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, especially that part of the book. But yeah, definitely check this out. Thanks so much for watching.